when you chose me as your Democratic nominee, I made you a vow. In our Georgia, no one would be unseen, no one is unheard, and no one is uninspired.
Hello, everybody. Got some great news. A judge has ordered that the Dominion voting machines in Georgia should be impounded for 10 days. It's the same judge who yesterday went through. First, he ordered them impounded, then he halted the impounding, and then apparently late last night, he ordered them impounded again. The name of the judge is Timothy Barr, and I think he's in the 11th Circuit in Georgia. So anyway, that's some great news, and some interesting forensic evidence should come out of that impounding. Some updates since yesterday. I had talked about Doug Ross's numbers that he gave, and this came from Sidney Powell's complaint that was filed last week in Georgia. And one of the things that they said was that the signature rejection rate for the most recent election announced by the Secretary of State was 0.15%, and the signature rejection rate for absentee ballot applications was 0.00167%. There were only 30 statewide rejected absentee ballot applications. So last night, I just, out of curiosity, wanted to figure out how many absentee ballot applications there were total, if only 30 were rejected, and that was 0.00167%. So the number I came up with for the number of total absentee ballot applications submitted is 1,796,407, and it didn't come out to be an even number. But as you know, with these Dominion tampered numbers, a lot of times they don't come out to be even. How that happens is a little bit mysterious, but anyway, so about 1.8 million ballots, absentee ballot applications submitted total. One of the things that I'm finding interesting is how Stacey Abrams strategized to vastly increase the number of absentee ballots that were submitted. And I believe she went through what I'm calling a three-prong approach. First, get them to accept email ballots. And this is from her website, Fair Fight. This is her nonprofit organization. And this is a news release from July 15th, 2020, when her nonprofit Fair Fight Action called on the Georgia Secretary of State to immediately compel all 159 counties to accept email applications for absentee ballots. She was successful in this complaint that she did get the Brad Raffensperger to comply with her request. And one of the things that I was interested in is I went ahead to the Georgia Secretary of State website to download one of these absentee ballots. I was curious to look at it. And of course, right on the ballot, it has whether or not you're a Democrat or a Republican. That could affect whether or not that person gets called if they, make a mistake in how they're filling out the ballot, because that was the lawsuit I talked about yesterday that Democratic Party won in March of this year. Was that if a ballot is rejected, then within 3 days, an election official needs to contact the person submitting the ballot to let them know the ballot was rejected. So that is on there, and I do wish it weren't, but I guess it has to be. And something else is curious. So here on the ballot, it says signature or mark of the voter. And when I went to, I just Googled it and found this article from the Columbus local Ledger Inquirer is the name of the local Columbus, Georgia newspaper. And in here, they have some information about these markings. Apparently, you don't need a signature on an email submitted absentee ballot application. You only need either a driver's license. Here we go. I just wanted to read this. Under Georgia law, voters may request an absentee ballot via a paper or online application. If requesting a ballot by paper, the application must be signed. That signature is checked against the state's voter database. If a ballot is requested online, a voter must provide their driver's license or another ID number to confirm their identification. So this push that Trump and other members of the Trump team are arguing for, where they're going to verify the signatures, for ballots submitted by email, there aren't signatures. A person just has to know the driver's license of the, or some other form of ID of the person they're submitting a ballot for in order to get an email, to email for an application. And so that might explain the large number of ballots submitted, 1.8 million this year. Now, in this other article we looked at on the 2018 election, they had some other interesting numbers here. That this, in this article, let me go to the top, it's called Lawsuit Settled, Giving Georgia Voters Time to Fix Rejected Ballots. This is by Mark Neese, March 7th, 2020. And I talked about it yesterday, but let me just briefly talk about it again. Georgia voters must be quickly notified when election officials reject their absentee ballots, allowing them time to correct problems and have their ballots counted. And this was a lawsuit submitted by the Democratic Party of Georgia. But what I was interested in here is that apparently the 2018 general election caused a lot of upheaval because there were a lot of tight races, and then 8,157 absentee ballots were thrown out, which is about 3% of all absentee ballots returned by mail at that time. Now that is a more reasonable amount of absentee ballots. 3% of 8,157, 8,157 is 3% of the total, and the total then comes out to 271,900, the total number of ballots, absentee ballots submitted in 2018. So we went from, in 2018, about 270,000 absentee ballots to, in 2020, 1.8 million ballots. And at the same time that that happened, we went from a 3% rejection rate in 2018 to right here, a 0.15% rejection rate on signatures, barely anything, and a 0.00167% rejection rate on absentee ballot application signatures. So you can see that these signatures are just not being verified. And one thing I found interesting that I didn't see yesterday when I looked at this article was at the end, they quickly had another, or made another announcement about the settlement. And this is really dumbfounding. In addition, this is the March settlement that the Democratic Party filed a lawsuit against Brad Raffensperger in the Secretary of State's office back in March to make sure that the absentee ballot rejection rate would not be 3% again in this election. And one of the things, so this is part of the settlement. In addition, the settlement requires more thorough procedures before election officials can reject a ballot because of discrepancies in voter signatures. A majority of county election officials reviewing absentee ballots must agree that signatures don't match, comparing them with all signatures they have on file. Can you imagine, with 1.8 million ballots submitted, that they want there to be more than one election official determining whether or not the signatures match? Just the sheer time involved in getting these multiple election officials to stare at one ballot at a time and review these signatures. And so that explains the low rate of rejection, 0.15% for the ballots once they're submitted, and 0.00167% for the absentee ballot applications. 30 statewide rejections. So that's all I have for today. It's just crazy, the news, but just keep in mind this good news that the judge has issued a restraining order that will prevent defendants from destroying the Dominion voting machines. And it'll be more possible to get forensic evidence on what happened with those Dominion voting machines. So thank you so much for tuning in. Please have a wonderful day, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.